Okay, so take a breath in and relax as you exhale. Relax into your chair. Let your body soften and let your awareness come into your heart and breathe your soft breaths through your heart. And just feel your chest expand and relax, and your heart begin to open more and more. There is a reason that your heart is helping you to breathe and to think and to feel. And let it be your friend in this, your ally, your guide. Let it bring you to a place of trust and softness, of willingness, awareness, of surrender, so that you open not just your heart, but your whole being. And you open it to receive the love here in the room, for you, with you, from the entourage of Kryon, the ancients and the ancestors, who all come in support of your sacred and magnificent journey.
Greetings, dear ones. I'm Kryon of Magnetic Service. For those listening, this is the beginning of a special kind of time. I'm surrounded by what you would call goddesses. Women who've decided to invest in their time for a number of days to discover things that they may not know about themselves. It's a time of introspection, and it's being done in Greece. You might ask, why here? What is the meaning of this? There will be times when the group is visiting only historic places, and yet there will be a sacredness that they will discover. And the sacredness will be something that they bring to the area, not that the area gives to them. This place has been known most famously for the seat of thinking, philosophies, ideas. Many of the structures, the temples, might seem to be that gods that don't exist, or perhaps those were manufactured for the society, for the civilization. Yet there is so much more there than just buildings. What you don't know is who might be here and was here. Some of you listening to this, including the ladies in front of me, may relate to this or not. But I'm about to tell you something that you may find interesting, of why there was so much here. There would be introspection, a place known for thinking, philosophy, poetry. So much thinking comes from somewhere else. But it's all introspective. As you visit that which is a building, perhaps a monument to a god that you can't even relate to, I want you to remember that this is the seat of introspection. And so the land is ready for you to think beyond that which is 3D. a place that has had for centuries those who would visit it and call upon themselves and say, what is there that is more? What is the philosophy of God? Who am I? And now for a revelation. I will go slow here, and I'm going to tell you something that to some is a review, but it is what we would call germane to the area. That means it belongs to the area. What I'm about to tell you may not have the proper names or places, because names and places are all current. They change over thousands of years. Not only that, the information may be contradictory to what you've been told, even esoterically told. It may not be what you think or what you believe, but I'm going to give it to you anyway. If you take a look at your full lineage, women, many of you started at the beginning. Many of you were Lemurian. Those listening, even to this voice, may very well have that attribute. You were very old souls, and we have said this before. When Lemuria started sinking into the ocean, from the majesty of being a mini continent to finally being simply the tops of the mountains sticking up out of the water, today called Hawaii, when it started sinking, the entire population left. The sinking was gradual. Year by year, less land, less land, less land. And that is something that literally sticks in fear into the individual, to watch their home swallowed by water as the ground beneath them starts to rumble with the volcanoes and slip into the ocean little by little by little by little. The fear is that you will lose everything, including your lives, your children, everything. And so the Lemurians took to the canoes. And the rest, we have told you, is history. And they went everywhere on the planet. The currents mostly took them south. They landed upon Easter Island, upon New Zealand, upon the west coast of the United States, and other places as well. And we've told you this. Eventually, through thousands and thousands of years, they spread all over the planet. And the lineage of them spread. But they had something in common. The Akash told them they were happiest on an island. And so many Lemurians and the sons and daughters of Lemurians through the ages found themselves wanting to be on islands. And that's where you found Lemurians and the highest thinking of the planet for many, many centuries. Doesn't it make sense that that which they were used to sticks into the Akash and you want to do it again? An island is safe, surrounded by water, hard to get to by conquerors, allows for free thinking. It is safe to be there. It is where they had raised their families before. And you found them on islands. Dear ones, there's something about being on an island that is a bit dangerous. And that is, over thousands of years, many islands disappear. Like Lemuria, most of it is through earthquake and volcanic action. Plate tectonics, use whatever term you wish, and an island will sink. Over and over, you had other island sinking experiences. At least 3 of these have stuck into your Akash, and you remember them, but you don't remember them as 3 incidences. Your Akash is not linear. It doesn't count years, days, or islands. you have called the one experience of a sinking island Atlantis. Now, if we took a poll to those listening to this, or in this room of the goddesses present, and we said, how many of you believe you were on Atlantis? You'd be amazed at how many hands you would see. The sinking island syndrome is with old souls more than anything else. And you will say, I was from Atlantis, I know it, I remember. I'll tell you what you remember. You remember the fear of a sinking island. From Lemuria all the way to the most recent one. And that's what I want to tell you about. The most recent sinking island experience was not far from here. It's in the Mediterranean. Before, it was covered by water. Why would it be covered by water? There was no activity that would create that was volcanic in the Mediterranean. No, but there was in Gibraltar. If you take a look at the map today, you will see that Gibraltar is a tiny opening. And that tiny opening let in the ocean to form the Mediterranean. Yes, there was water in the Mediterranean before, naturally from other sources. And so there was always water there, but not as much as when Gibraltar opened up due to an earthquake. It opened and the ocean poured in. And that island that you lived in, safe, filled with thinkers, Lemurians, which you now called Atlantis, was in the Mediterranean, and it quickly flooded. Not slowly, but very fast. Those who could escape came here. Now you know perhaps a little of the history of what is here. It is interesting, esoterically, that humans do whatever they do. And the sinking of that island, which is not the Atlantis, but to you it was one of many, and the most recent, the sinking of that created great anger. Who was this God who would do this yet again? And so therefore there was, what you say, a propensity to think deeper and say, perhaps God is not God. Perhaps there are many. I'll leave it at that. But now you know an esoteric history that I never gave you before. And it's one that I've waited to give you now. Are you Atlantean? Are you Lemurian? Or is it the same? How many times did you endure a sinking island before you decided no more islands for me? My partner was here. He was not an Atlantean. He was a fisherman. And I've told him that before. That's enough for now. Let the adventure begin. And so it is.
Okay, so goddesses, why don't you close your eyes? Take a breath in. Just let yourself come into that nice, soft, relaxed place that the goddess loves. And let the energy of the day be behind you now. And feel the energy in this room, this circle, these goddesses, the presence of all of the entourage, the ancestors, the ancient ones, that are here to honor us as we honor and love each other in this family of goddesses, this circle of light. Feel that love around you. Feel that honoring. Feel that yes. And just let yourself sink into that yes, the supportive spirit, the love of the goddess, the energy that we were in today that comes with us now as it is awakened. And how you know yourself more deeply, as beautiful, as sacred, and as magnificent.
Greetings, greetings, dear ones. I am Kryon of Magnetic Service. This is the second message in what you have called the Goddess Tour. And today, you went to that place they call the Accropolis Hill. And I want to take a moment to tell you what you really saw. It is profound. Not for the historical reasons, but you see such a big picture of what we have been telling you now for over 2 decades. And I want to review with you a little of what the energies were that perhaps very few see. And then I want to project it onto the future. You're looking at Greek history. And we have said it before. Many would say that this is the place where so much thinking began. Thinking about self, about planet, about esoterics, about all things intellectual, about language and science, art, beauty, sculpture, architecture. And that there was so much advancement here in those areas so quickly. Indeed, if you go back as far as you can, this is the place where human beings started to examine God or the feeling of Creator in a very intellectual way. You can go to different places of the planet and you can see the beginnings of many kinds of beliefs. But in this particular place, you get to reveal something I'm going to identify. And what I'm going to identify now is spiritual evolution. It is so easy to see here. How it started, where it went, and perhaps where it's going. We've talked about the dispensations of energy that human beings have gone through that have to do with spiritual things. You would think that God would be self-evident. That a human being would be born and there would then be an intuitive sense that said there was a creator. And there is. As far back as you go. From the ancients who lived on the planet far before the Greeks, there was. But here you got to see it in a way that really paints spiritual evolution. It's interesting, but it's understandable that if there is a creator, that the first things that human beings would try to do would to be figure out who it is, what it is, and why it is. And in a very elementary beginning way, in spiritual evolution, you did not have the kind of esoteric thought you do today. Not at all. It had to start very, very simply. And what humans have done, literally since they began to operate with God, is to humanize God. It's understandable. That's all you have as a model, the psyche, the humanness. The greatest philosophers would humanize God. Even today, the greatest organized systems of spirituality continue to humanize God. But you saw it so clearly, did you not? On the Accropolis hill. There you got the information of the 12 gods. Humans decided that God was a family. That makes sense. Because again, all humanity had was themselves. And so the model creator had to be like them. But they went the second mile in Greece. They made them dysfunctional. Now this is funny now, but they did it because that's who they were. And so it made sense to them that there would be disagreements and all of the things that humanity has with their gods. Now, before we go any further, I would like to bring up something. No matter who is describing God, no matter how elementary it is, whether it's in Egypt, whether it's in Greece, there is numerology involved that is accurate. Why 12? Why did Plato decide to split the soul into 3 intellectual parts? Even today, you teach the triad in so many ways, and currently in spiritual belief. So the numerology seemed to be accurate. There are many civilizations that had many gods, but none like this, for they intellectualized all of them. In Egypt, there were many gods. Sometimes through Egypt history, there was one god, Pharaoh. Unfortunately for them, he kept dying. And so then he was replaced. That then led to another system, because the creator is not supposed to die. And so you have 12 immortals. That is a beginning. And you have to see what took place over eons of time, thousands of years. We sat in that which you call the state of Israel not that long ago. And we told you that those who spoke Hebrew on that land, that you call the Jews, brought this planet a monotheistic God. And that was the next step. So you go from many gods to a monotheistic God. The master of love also spoke Hebrew. What an irony it is that the master was a Jew. And you see the evolution from many gods to one. You go from the dispensation, perhaps, of law to a dispensation of love. And we have said this before, that there would be 3 dispensations. When you passed the 2012 marker, you moved into the dispensation of responsibility. And immediately you saw the issue. For 2,000 years, although you had a monotheistic God, it was still elementary. For now you decided to argue over who had it right. And even the major belief systems of the planet are split. One creative source, and wars about how to worship it. Like children in a playground, discovering the seeds of truth and not seeing what the truth really is. Past 2012, it becomes slowly the dispensation of responsibility. And then there will be a further evolution, the final evolution, where they see the essence of God and realize that it applies to all humanity, that there is no right or wrong way to worship or to love God, and that culture can be different and appreciated and respected and understood. And there will be many ways, but all of them will be correct. For God is love. That is the step that you are now starting to move into. And in the process, those who are the most radicalized about what they believe is correct or not correct are the ones that will make the most noise. And that is because they start to see the devolution, the crumbling of the differences. Light starts to be greater than dark. And you start to understand that God is not intellectual. God is not like a human. God is love, compassion, so much more than anything that a human being corporally is. And that revelation is something that you can capture and live. And that God is a caring God, not a judgmental God. Today, when you look at the most modern belief systems on the planet, in this year, 2016, you still have a humanized God. A God who will punish you and watch you, who doesn't want you to do this or that. And that, my dear ones, will eventually go away. The dehumanization of God is at hand when you start to realize that the creator of the universe is not human, does not think like a human, and never has. This age of responsibility starts to put upon you some things that you should think about. You've always been told how to worship. You've been carried along by others who said, do this and do that. They tell you which direction to face. They remind you of the mythology. They tell you about dark, negative energy and how to avoid it. And all you do is follow the example and go from one place to another, hoping you get it right. Suddenly the light is turned on and you realize that none of those things are accurate. They've been put upon you by human nature. That God is light and the mythology starts to disappear. The traditions that you would hold clear for centuries start to disappear because you start evolving. And in that evolution, I will tell you what's next for you. This is a group that is going to do ceremony. Ceremony is like congratulations of energy, of self. It's celebration. That's what it is. And in that there is epiphany and realization. And I want to tell you the premise that we have been teaching for so long. It's time to change the entire paradigm of how you work with God. You wait for others to give you instructions of where to worship, how to worship, when to worship, how much, how long. It's part of the structure of your life. But dear ones, it's not a box. The age of responsibility means that at any time you wish, you are your own altar. God is inside you. If somebody says you have several hours of free time on a tour, it doesn't close the door to celebration. It means you can go into the forest with others if you wish, or just across the street to visit a tree. And you can use 3 hours to celebrate all by yourself, because that's the freedom of God. Don't let an activity or a historical site or the history lessons get in the way of how you feel at the moment about God. Don't compartmentalize it. Know that you are one who can worship and celebrate the beauty of God in you no matter where you are. In a closet, in a historic place that means nothing to sacredness at all. You are sacred. You are sacred. I feel a song coming on. And so it is.
So before we begin the channel, let's have a brief time of bringing your energy in, deeply inside, and let the beautiful, ancient mysteries of this land surround you. Feel your resonance, your own heartbeat with the heartbeat of this land. And let it deepen that place inside of you that remembers. Let the air, let the land, let the birds, let the breeze bring that appreciation for this land inside of you. The remembrance. Do you remember being here? Do you remember your tribe here? And placing your hand on your heart, saying thank you. Mahalo, thank you.
Greetings, dear ones. I'm Kryon of Magnetic Service. We are in Greece at Delphi, sometimes called Delphi. I have channeled at many sacred sites, many historical sites in many continents. They are there for you to hear. My apologies to the historians, to the guides, to those who are invested in the history of the places that I channel. therefore, I tend to rewrite a bit of what has happened. And I do it in that which is a metaphysical way. The esoterics of this area are profound, very profound. Let me make a statement. All over the world at this time in history, there was the understanding of the esoteric, just starting to try to communicate with that which is the Creator, that which was the God, that which was the earth. And it took several paths. If you take a look at Asia, you'll see it very clearly. And the results are certain major religions of the planet. But here, as it was done and as it was given and as it was recorded, affected this continent greatly. What was done here set the stage for what was to come in esoteric evolution. Again, we point this out. These were the beginning days, just awakening to the realization that the communications might be possible. We speak of Apollo. Apollo used an oracle. Now, this is where some of the history may depart. And I want to be clear of the esoterics and the metaphors involved. For the oracle was the priestess. But, dear ones, there were more than one. And many times the priestess had to be an elder. And the communication had to be a woman. And I want you to see already that the honoring of the female for communications was still here. Even in the days where the gods were being developed, the female was seen to be the one who was the shamanic one and who could communicate. Now, the elder woman, used as the oracle to make the pronouncements, had to be pure. Now, don't misinterpret this, for this will then span some cultures and give you some understanding. It wasn't just that she had to wash in a certain spring. She had to be pure of consciousness. Now, listen to this. There was no mention of being a virgin. This was not of this culture. In fact, the family was important then as now. You recognize that the very gods were a family. And therefore, procreation was respected, honored, expected, and she would have many grandchildren. The idea of virginity being something that you had to have to be pure was completely and totally a man-made principle. Now, what I want to show you is this. The principle of all of this was to get messages. You might be interested in who the oracle originally might have been talking to. And that was something called Gaia. Now, it was not spelled as you spell it today. Go look for that. And so it was communication to the planet, to what you call the energy of creation, Gaia, today. Now, I want you to look again at what this represented. First of all, even Apollo had to use an intermediary, someone else, to talk to the creative source, to get messages in her own way. Today, you see this even extended into those major spiritual systems that still use an intermediary from you to God. It started here. It is extended even to modern systems. But what I want to tell you is that you are sitting at the beginning of channeling. That is it. And so it is.
Hello, beautiful goddesses. Welcome to your temple. And again, it feels like home, doesn't it? So let's have an interior few moments, closing your eyes and letting the earth come up through you, wherever you're sitting, wherever you're standing. Let this sacred earth come up through you. And feel the peace that it can give you. Once you receive it, you continue to generate peace. And we celebrate the peace of this moment. Just feel it right here. The peace of the earth, peace of the sky, and the peace in your hearts. Here you are in this beautiful place, this ancient place, where the goddess was worshipped. And that goddess energy is within you. You don't need to seek it without you. But it is here that you find her reflection of you. The peace, the beauty, the light that you feel here is you. It is those ancient days, but it is also you. So breathe into that. Feel it absorbing through your breath into your being, so that nothing outside can disturb the peace inside. And on this day of balance between darkness and light, find that balance of peace inside. We all have it. Just like we contain the divine masculine and the divine feminine, we contain the balance of peace inside. And the goddesses that are here, that have come all this way to be together again as a family of goddesses and priestesses who have been everywhere else on the planet, return to this home together today, to feel the peace and the joy of being in one of our homes, a temple dedicated to the goddess.
Greetings, dear ones. I'm Kryon of Magnetic Service. I want you to take just a moment of reflection, of the validation that I have been telling you for years about history. We told you early on that the women were the shamans, for they were the life givers and the ones that were connected intuitively to the planet. And you see that here, in the years even before the Master of Love, which you call BC. You see Athena, and you see Gaia. And this is how it was. Dear ones, I want you to reflect on this, because this is returning. And what is returning is a more mother-like consciousness for the planet. And you will again see women in a role that respects their intuition and their shamanship in a far more equal way on the planet than there is now. All of this comes with a higher consciousness and the shift. I want to do something in these moments. I want to do something very left brain and something very right brain. Let's discuss for a moment where you sit. Now, for those who are not here, they are going to miss some things. For I'm going to talk about specifics that happened with the oracle and Apollo. Right now, I want you to reflect again on where you are. In Greece. Very few people use the term Greek history. It's almost always Greek mythology. And that carries with it an indication that much of what they are studying was completely mythical, invisible, didn't exist. And yet, the seeds of what didn't exist created great civilizations, wonderful wisdom, it won wars, it created music, it created poetry, something that didn't exist, the mythology of the Greeks. And so there's always seeds of truth. I would like to tell you about that in a moment. But first, the left brain. This is for fun, just so that you can see how things evolve. Have you ever had a situation where you told someone a story, and they told the story to someone else, and they told the story to someone else? And then finally you hear your own story a year later, and it's not the story at all. It happens all the time. Can you imagine, over thousands of years, hundreds of years, centuries, what happens to stories? Not only that, you mix in superstition, and you'll have great enhancements and differences in what happened. Let's create one. A man is walking through the forest, and he is whistling. He is having a good day. He's not watching where he's going. And he trips on a branch and falls into the mud. He relates this simple story to his friend, who then tells other people and tells other people. Within a few years, he hears his story again. And now the story goes like this. Be sure not to whistle in the forest, because the trees will object, and they will trip you and make you fall into the mud as punishment for whistling. Dear ones, I would like to give you an example of this mythology and also the superstitions. To this day, it is inappropriate to whistle backstage in any theater on the planet. And the reason is because of this effect. It probably has a name for you, but let's call it the enhancement of stories. You have one right here. Apollo and the oracle. You were given all kinds of information about what happened with the oracle. Literally step by step, how the oracle was involved, how the serpent, the python, was involved, how the chasm was involved. You also were told an unrelated piece of this that makes no sense. You have ice water being poured on a sheep, and the reaction of the sheep affects then what happens with the oracle. Let me present a left brain explanation that could have been. This is a volcanic area. Over 2,000 years ago, even more so. You would walk around and you would see fissures with steam and sulfur-like vapors coming out of them. Now, this is typical of any active volcanic area. Just ask the kahuna, for she has this literally by her house. And in that, you see the scene for the mythology of the oracle. Now, let me ask you a question. What happens when you pour cold water down a volcanic fissure? You get hissing. That could have been the serpent. So instead of cold water on the sheep, it's cold water into the fissure. The hissing is the serpent, and the woman, the priestess who interprets the hissing, is interpreting water in heat and the voice of Gaia. In addition, the priestess had a tripod that spanned the fissure, and that means she was sitting in the middle of it. That means that all the vapors would come at her, which she would breathe. That affects the mind. And she would then be able to enhance her message, inappropriately or appropriately, depending upon the amount of gases that came up from the fissure. That may have been the real story. But I'm going to present now something right brain. If this was all mythology, if they were entities that did not exist, how is it that this area and Greece had so much results? They had success in battle. They had poetry, the first notations of music. They had so much here from a mythological source. Or was it? And now we give you the principle. The principle that you see right here in the place of Athena. You have feminine intuition, just like the priestess, delivering intuitive information from the creative source of the planet. It was accurate. Not only that, the humans surrendered their logic and let the priestess say what was to be said. And when you do that as a human being, quite often you get channeling. And the information is accurate. Many times the potentials and the prophecies are accurate. And that is how Spirit honors humanity. Even if they get it wrong of who is talking, Spirit honors them in the asking. Right brain. What are you doing now? I'll tell you this. No matter what belief system you have brought to this circle, dear ones listening to this, no matter what, Spirit is poised in love, ready to answer questions accurately, truthfully. If you come through superstition, you will still get good answers. You see, mythology often leads to superstition, and you will see it in many cultures even this day. Spirit works around that, loving humanity, no matter what they think, no matter what they get right or wrong. The Creator is inside of you. And that is good news. It's positive. The shift that you are seeing now on this planet is going to enhance your intuition. And the women will be the first old souls to feel it. And that is why you're here. It is a full circle, is it not? Can you hear the ones laughing, the divas in the forest, the ones in the land and the ground here, after all this time, realizing that it has come full circle, and they say, it's about time. And so it is.